currency, better than your currency. Splurging millions, buying houses like Monopoly. Fucking 9 to 5, man, the money is a joke to me.
Hey guys and girls, welcome to this week's episode of the B.Invested Birchy podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Birch, and this is the show unraveling the truth to the start of the 21st century when they exit the matrix and waking up to motherfucking reality. Today I want to talk about people ask me questions. I ask you guys to make comments and to leave notes for what things that you would like to hear from the community. And I got asked recently to talk about 10 of probably the biggest challenges that I had when I first started investing, and probably challenges that come along the way. And I'm not immune to the fact that just because I've been able to build a successful portfolio, businesses, all that sort of stuff, doesn't mean that I'm immune to problems happening. I've probably got more problems than any of you have been faced with. It's just how I deal with them, how I go through them, and the strength and the character that comes from the other side of dealing with those things. So looking at, it was an interesting question. It was challenging because it was like, okay, what are some of the things that held me back at the start? What were some of the belief systems that I had? What were some of the things that I had as a challenge along the way? And I'd love to sit here and say, oh, it was easy and all that. It's easy looking back when you're viewing back over 20 years, but there were things that were issues along the way, and mainly at the start, just to get started. So probably the first one is just, I never knew anyone that had a property portfolio of 10 properties. I didn't know, there was no access to YouTube, Facebook, podcast, anything like that, going back in 2003 when I bought the first property. So I had to go and try and plan it and build strategies myself. So I did it alone. I didn't have any network around me. So there became vulnerabilities, there became issues, etc. So looking at the first thing, it was the first one when I made a little list of it that's here. The first one that came to mind was income, right? I bought my first property when I was 18 years old. I see all these comments, right? Like, I've been on TV hundreds of times over the years, and people would write on the news articles and stuff, oh, this guy's got mum and dad's money, or someone sent me a TikTok video where someone is sharing clips of me on Sunday Night, the TV show. It was a documentary, and people are writing on there, must be doing drug money, must be mum and dad's money, must be an inheritance, whatever. And a lot of people easily to say that that's why I was successful, but none of them are correct, but it's an easy way to blame because it's hard to fathom and comprehend. So when I first got started, income was the biggest thing. I was on 40 grand a year, and that was working 7 days a week to get started. And I wanted to earn more money, so I had to work 2 full-time jobs in order to get started. People say, oh, it's too hard today. And I'd hate to be getting started today because, there's even more challenges. But when I look at it, I think there's a lot more opportunities today that I never had going back 20 years ago. And I'll talk about that in a second. If I was looking purely just at Sydney, I couldn't buy for $200,000 or $150,000 in Sydney. But at the time, buying a property for $250,000 in Sydney and renting for $180 or $200 a week with an interest rate of 9%, that doesn't sound like a good investment now, does it? Right? So when I look back in 2003, my first property was 248 grand. Rent was $180 per week, and interest rate, was nearly double digits. So it was much more than what everyone's complaining about today. So when I look at it, I think, okay, you can't buy a property for $248,000 in Sydney. That was a house on land, etc. And it was only renting for $100 a week. That thing would rent now for about $700-800 a week as it is. So, and it would be worth about $1 million. So it does show you that these things go up. But I look at areas today where I'm picking up properties in 2023 that are cheaper than what they were back in 2008 and 2006. So if someone could have a DeLorean and hop back in and go back to the future, the opportunities can exist. It's just identifying and finding those assets that you can go back and pick up on the cheap. So my biggest one was the income, right? Because I thought, how the fuck can I afford to buy a property at 248 grand, renting for $180 per week? It's negative cash flow, $200 a week, $300 a week. That's just on the mortgage. And I didn't even know what interest only was. So I was paying principal and interest, so it was probably even more. And, that was an issue. But then that brought another issue along with it, right? Which was the knowledge, right? I didn't have any knowledge. I had no connections. I had no education around it. I just touch, felt, and all that sort of stuff. So I look at a lot of my investors, right? I helped out a batch of people at the really early stage before B.Invested is as it is today. I helped out a couple of handfuls of people with some mentoring programs and some, just different things that I was doing. And I helped one investor get to 70 properties plus. And this person got to 20 properties in a year. And it took me like 6-7 years to get to 20 properties. So looking at it from having, people around you that have knowledge is important to avoid the mistakes that they made. So I could be sitting at a lot more properties in my portfolio if I didn't, if I had had a bit more of a blueprint in front of me to start off with, but no one had been doing it, so I had no mentors or anything like that. I had to learn it myself. So knowledge, the income. The other part, which is very much like income, is savings. So I didn't have any deposit, right? So I didn't even have a concept of what equity was. My knowledge didn't allow for me to even understand that equity was such a thing. But deposits, when I bought a property, I thought from all the knowledge that I'd learned from my family and people, colleagues, whatever in my ear, is you buy a place, you work hard, you pay it off, and then you get out of debt as quick as possible. And then if you do have a little bit left over, then you go and invest it in another property. And I think about that quite often, that if I didn't learn, I didn't quickly adjust, because my first, say, 7 or 8 properties, I didn't use equity. I worked harder and harder. I worked 2 jobs. So I didn't have enough income from one, so I had to work 2 full-time jobs. It was 1 year, I think I was about 21, and I worked every day of the year apart from 7 days, and most days I was working 20-hour days, 2 jobs, whatnot. So I had to push myself forward. But I was trying to save up a deposit. But if I was smarter, I would have knew what equity was all about. I would have leveraged that aspect. But I was just buying properties, working hard to pay those loans down. And it was only until I realised the concept of finance that I was like, hang on a second, I'm doing this wrong. So I didn't have any deposits. So I had to go and work hard, work 2 jobs, all that sort of stuff. And there were mistakes that I made, because if I was doing it again now, I'd just be like, okay, buy a property, rip the equity, go again, buy a property, rip the equity, go again, and work along that. So another one, I started when I was 18. I was 13 years old when I wanted to buy my first property, and I always had this belief system, I'm too young to be doing this, self-limiting beliefs. So age was one thing, and nowadays I'd do anything. I'd swap all of my portfolio to take my knowledge with me, of course, and go back to an 18-year-old kid, because I could, the damage I could cause today would be like really, really different. So, the age is a big one. The mindset, as I said beforehand, knowledge, but mindset around debt, the mindset around, I was a very cheap ass, right? I was a cheap ass, like a real frugal person, and I think nowadays I'm much more wiser. I'm very happy to spend money. I love spending money. I don't like money. It's just a concept. It's a belief system. And I didn't know how money worked way back 20 years ago. I knew bits and pieces of it, but I didn't think about it this way. I would go, I'd go and build sweat equity. So I didn't have any deposit. So I'd have to work hard, save a deposit. Then I'd have to try and manufacture a bit of equity, sweat equity, that sort of stuff. I'd go and pull apart second-hand houses, take the windows out, go and renovate my properties. Like, I was really on the tools back in the old days, and I don't touch tools anymore. But the mindset was very different. It was about how to save $1, right? And it wasn't about creating wealth. And probably the best way for me to explain this, I remember I was painting a property. I was maybe about 21 years old. And I was 21 years old, and I took 2 weeks off work to paint a property, right? And at 21, I was earning decent money. I was actually in a management role in the place I was working at, and I was on decent money. Let's say I was earning $2,000 a week, right, or $1,500 a week. And I turned around and I took this time off work, and I was painting a property. And when I was painting the property, I dropped paint, I cut my hand, I still got a hole straight through my hand, right? And I was like, shit, why am I doing this for? And it was only at that point I was like, hang on a second, I could pay a painter $2,000 to paint this place. I could pay a tradie to do that. I've had to take 2 weeks off work, so it's $2,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, whatever it is. I could have sat in my cushy job, playing on a laptop, making phone calls, doing what I was doing in an office job. I worked in an office job, and I could have paid someone else to do this, but I sacrificed my my annual leave. My highest and best value was not painting a property. My highest and best value was to buy the next deal that are going to make 50 grand on because I bought a property below market value. That's what I should have spent my time, energy, and effort on. But instead, my mindset was, let's try and save a buck, let's try and save a buck. And I'm very fortunate that I learnt that at a very young age, because I see so many people that are frugal and they go and stay too hard-nosed, focusing on the dollar that they can save without looking at ahead of them how they can pick up a $100 note in front of them instead of trying to pick up a dollar that's dropped on the ground. So, yeah, there's been definitely a lot of adversity over the years. Every level of success has built new challenges, shit that I never signed up for. Whether it be a tenancy issue, whether it be a staffing issue. I've got hundreds of staff today, right? Whether it be someone that you have a dispute with, whether it be a tradie that tries to do something bad, whether it be someone trying to steal from you, right? Whether it be someone trying to sue you, right? And all these things do come up in life, but a lot of people will just back down and they go, and if I listen to all the people, right, this is another thing, is that the people that have been around me, like my peers, my friends, girls I've dated, all different things over the years, and you hear like, if I was you, what I would do is do this, right? This is the other thing, right? So peers that are around you, your friends, your family, your parents, right? Your kids, your spouse, whatever. If I was you, what I would do is X, Y, Z. And I always think about it. I think, well, if you were me, that means that you would be doing what you would be doing. And if I do what you're telling me to do, then that's going to make me into you. And if I don't get inspired with who you are, well, then I don't want to take those steps, right? So that's a big mindset shift there, because you have to go, hey, these people care about me, they're coming from a place of love, whatever, but leaving out crucial elements. So if you have everything calculated, mapped out, calculated, and making educated decisions, that's what's important. So you always need to stay back to your true plan of, why is it you're investing? What is this property going to do? What is this decision going to do to get you further along or take you further back? But I think it's really important to think about, the hurdles, right? Because a lot of people, I'll get back to the knowledge base of it. Like with hurdles, like I've had so many things that have come my way. I hear people and they go, oh, but the interest. I had someone today that said, oh, my property's negative $1,000 a year, right? I had someone the other week that said my property, I can't claim enough tax on it because it's positive, like my whole portfolio is positive, like 20 grand a year. And I'm thinking, there's people going bankrupt out there because they're losing money, right? They're literally losing money. And someone's upset because they're positive cash flow, right? And it's like, well, that's a good thing, right? But at each stage, I mean like really serious adversity that I've come across, right? Whether it's I'm out of fucking money, right? Loans that don't come through, deposits. I'm at points where I could lose $1 million, $2 million. I literally, straight up, I can be sued $2 million. There's certain times when things have occurred and it's like, fuck, like that's like catastrophic. I'm not allowing it to happen. And I've had to, get on my knees and do what I have to do, right? Not really, but I've had to do things that I haven't wanted to do in order to pull myself out. And most people would sit there and be like, oh, that's too scary, or that's that. It's like, well, I wouldn't be here. I didn't just wake up going, yeah, I'm fucking Nathan Birch and I've got this, done this, done this. It's all become a sum of actions that have been taken, very calculated, risk, assessed decisions that have been carefully constructed over 20 years to be able to get there. And I think, people should have fear. There's the emotions that people have. I never had any emotional issues, right? There's probably a couple of times when I got started, either ego, which got out of the way from emotion, like thinking I'm awesome and shit. But there's probably times when fear, right? And I got feared a few times, but I think I keep my fear and ego very well in check, right? Emotional intelligence is very crucial to be successful. You don't see people that are successful or highly successful that can't control their emotions. It just doesn't add up. So controlling that's very important. Your peers, as I said beforehand, just be cautious who's giving you the advice. I often think about it this way, right? I remember I had this tradie and he'd been divorced like 3 times, always in the pub, always broke as fuck, living out of his van, whatever, right? And he would always talk negative about women, right? And he's like, oh, fucking women, this, whatever, right? And it's like, hang on a second, right? Your decisions have led you to this position, right? You're drunk, you're pissed off with your life, right? And you're not a good catch for a female, right? So why would anyone want to take advice from you, right? And at the same time, you could see someone with a happy marriage, right? They could be like, okay, shit goes wrong, this is what you're going to deal with, whatever the case may be. So you've got 2 paths there and 2 people that you can oscillate to. You can listen to the one that's, not going to get you to a happy place, and someone that could get you to a happy place. So it's important to make sure that you're taking the decisions and taking the advice from people that have what you want, and be very protective of yourself, because those decisions, the circle you've got around you, are very influential, right? And very, very influential. So based on that, how do you overcome that? I was fortunate enough, I hated the thoughts of prospects of life from the age of 13, right? It's probably only later years of my life, probably the last 5 years or so, that I've been more happier with my life, right? That's based on the decisions and all that. But I used to just hate the prospect. I'd sit there at school, I'd be told how shit I was. I got a 32.8 in my UAI. I think kids nowadays would call it an ATAR or some shit. I don't know what it is, right? But anyway, I actually had a scholarship at school to go to university. I did a university degree in year 12. I got some uni thing that I did. And I wasn't dumb, but I just didn't care about the schooling that was being taught to me. It just wasn't of an interest. And I kept getting told from everyone around me, whether it's old people, family, teachers, whatever, you're going to amount to shit, right? You're not going to amount to anything. You better get used to working in a Wreckers, right? All the this isn't bad for anyone that works in a Wreckers, right? But all the losers at school that used to go and jig school and smoke and shit like that, they'd all go and work in the Wreckers at the age of 15, and that seemed to be their life, right? And I was like, hang on a second. The best that I could do would be a teacher, and a teacher's on, I don't know what they're probably on, 60 grand a year or 70 grand a year. Like, these are the people that are trying to inspire me. That's pretty fucked up to earn 60 grand a year for the rest of my life, right? I don't want to do that, right? I see people that are 60 and they're retiring, and it's like, how can you get through life doing that? And now you need 120 grand to be, out there. And then 200 grand, what would 200 grand get you today? There's news articles saying you need 250 a year, and it's like, you can't just go and get jobs that pay that stuff. So I started planning and reverse engineering and go, if I work in my family business, we had a fish shop, right? So a lot of people don't know that I grew up with a family. We had a fish shop. We sold, tropical fish and fish tanks, and I kind of like Deuce Bigelow, but I'm not a gigolo, right? I've never said that before, right? I can see people in the room laughing here at me, right? But I know everything about fish, and I can tell you what illnesses you fish have. It's just random. I don't even have a fish tank. I've got ponds of aquaponics and stuff like that. But I used to work in the family shop, and there was issues there, and they're like, how dare you get paid $8 an hour, right? I earn $100 a day if I work hard on a weekend and stuff like that. And it was like, you don't have an understanding of money because you're getting paid too much. And anyway, that's a family issue, right? Everyone has family issues. But I'd earn like $100 a day, and I'd think, okay, if I can work 4 afternoons in a week, and I might get $20 or $25 for that, and then I work on the weekend days, I can get $200. I can save and work throughout the school holidays every day. I might be able to save 20 grand in a year, or I'd work literally every day when I was a kid. I'd just be like, okay, how can I provide and how can I get? So, I'd plan and go, okay, if I can do that for the next 3 years, I'm 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, there's 5 years. But, I really started ramping up. I'm like, 50 grand, what's it going to get me? I can buy property for $500,000, that's too expensive. Buy property for 300 grand, too expensive. I need something where the rent's going to come in so I don't have to go and work so hard. And I sort of, at a very young age, started planning and setting goals and setting strategies and trying to build, okay, if I had 10 of these things, they give me $100 each, at what age? And people go, oh, you can get a spreadsheet now and put some forward planning and shit in there. Let me tell you, go and look at any property transactions over the last 20, 30, 40 years. Property ain't linear. There's ups, downs, sideways, all those different things. So I wanted to work on the worst case scenario. I worked on always worst case scenarios, and I came up with strategies, and I started planning those strategies, working out, okay, what happens if this happens. People would tell me negative stuff, all the people that cared for me, loved me, whatever, even the people that hated me and wanted to bum steer me and say, you're an idiot, why would you want more than one house? I'd take their feedback and I'm like, you're an idiot, can't respect you for your opinion. I didn't think it at the time, but I was just like, no, that doesn't sound right, but I'd call it out for what it is today. But I'd be like, it's a good point, that could be scary. How can I try and remove that risk? And that's how I built my strategies. And I've built those strategies. I've treated my investing like a business, and that helped me a lot. I didn't get emotionally excited. I didn't get emotionally scared because of anything. I'm just like, hang on a second, yeah, okay, I can see that. Let's minimise that risk by doing X, Y, Z. So yeah, I think resources are very important. Resources in, like, whether it be financial capacity, time capacity. You could have a 40-year-old person that might have equity in their house. You might have a 20-year-old person that doesn't have anything getting started and they've got time. So everyone's got a different position. You need to respect what you've got as resources as far as human capital, your personal time, but then also leverage of your knowledge and leverage of other people's knowledge, and having that right team around you. As I said, I didn't have a team of people. I didn't have any mentors or anything like that. People always ask, back in the old days, like, who were your mentors, who taught you this, etc. I didn't have any of that. It was all based on fear and strategy and planning and a lot of that. But I did have very good people around me, and looking back, having the right team, having the right property managers, having the right builders. I haven't always picked good people. I've been very good at getting people, but they weren't the best people and stuff like that. And it was probably about 7 years ago, I made a decision. I was like, instead of saying this person can do this or they're a good person or whatever, I'm like, I want the fucking best person to do this. I need the best people to be able to get me to the best places. So whether it come into staffing, into any area of my businesses, whether it be come to any advisors, whether it be a lawyer, you want to be able to leverage lawyers and brokers and property managers and tradespeople. If you do have a mentor, leverage them. You need to be able to leverage that team. You need to have a very fucking good team. So there's no point, getting an unhealthy coach. There's no point getting someone that's meant to be a medical professional and they're, unhealthy. You need to be able to get someone that's got what, getting you to where you want to be. So if you are wanting to be successful financially, you need to be making sure that you're working with the people that have the resources to get there, right? So what I mean by that, if you go to your broker tomorrow and say, okay, how many people I've worked out I need to get 15 properties to retire, and I want to get there in 5 years, right? 3 properties a year, very simple, right? And your broker goes, 15 properties, right? You can tell instantly from looking at your broker's face or hearing the tone of their voice and the tonality going, fuck, they think that that's stupid, right? I need to find a broker that's going to be able to go, okay, cool, yeah, that's possible. Let's work on the first 5, and then we'll work on the next 5 and work on the next 5, right? You need to make sure that you're working with people that have the capacity to get you to where you want to be, because if they can't, if they've never got anyone there, how are they going to get you there? And if they do, you're going to be the first, and you're going to be the first thing that you touch on anything is going to be a disaster. So, be very, very cautious of those that you get on your team. Make sure they've got the capacity to get you there, which is very important. And I think probably the biggest one, and I've thought about this as whilst talking in this podcast, belief system. When I first started, I wanted to retire. I wanted to have $50,000 a year. It was just a humble figure of $50,000 a year, 10 properties that could give me $100 per week. That was a very simple thing. But every property I'd touch would be negative by the tune of $200 a week, right? So I had to work harder, keep my properties negative cash flow and whatnot. And seeing the light at the other side was hard. And even believing, I had the numbers mapped out, right? I had all the numbers, I had all the calculations, it all worked out, right? But I had not seen it beforehand. No one around me had done it. I had never heard of anyone doing it beforehand. So my belief system had a level of doubt on there, like, this isn't going to happen, right? But I was like, I can sacrifice to the age of 30. I was 18 when I bought my first property, and I thought 12 years, fuck up 2 years, buy 1 property a year, very simple sort of thing. And I could sacrifice to the age of 30, and at that point I can do whatever the fuck I want with my life. But I still had this part like, it's untrue, it ain't going to happen, whatever. But no one even told it. It was just me inside saying, I'm going to make this happen, right? So, your fear can also, you can either use it for or against you. Most people just get paralyzed by it and they don't take a step in the right direction because they're too, covered with fear. So, these, I just thought I'd share, top challenges that I've got, or not that I've got now, but that I've had over the years. And, I deal still with this day, like that's me getting started, right? But to this day, like I deal with adversity, right? It's like there's decisions here. If you don't do this, this is going to happen. It's like, it's just a part of it. It's a part of it. There's never going to be the right timing. There's never going to be the right, green lights to the city. There's never going to be the right environment for everything, right? It's a matter of having a plan, having a strategy that's well thought out, well researched, in line with your goals, achievable, break it down 50 times over, pull it apart, pull it to pieces and go, here's all the holes in it. What about it this, what about that? Make sure you're comfortable with a 95% comfort level, and then all you need to do is make those steps towards it and not get deviated and not get distracted and not get taken off course on that way along that journey to make sure you get to where you want to be. So I just thought I'd share that with you guys. Thanks a lot for listening. If you're at any of those points or need help overcoming any of those points, we're always here for you. You can reach out to us 1300 367 925. Email us at admin@binvested.com.au. Have a chat with my team. Have a discovery session. Speak to one of my team. Most of my team are investors themselves. If they're not an investor already, they're working their way to become an investor. I've got young people in my office that are in their teenager years, and they've got half a dozen properties to their name and stuff like that as well. So, we're all investors. We're all working on these same goals. So reach out to us. Make sure you subscribe. If you like it, give us a thumbs up. Share it with your friends and family. Tag someone you think might need to hear this, might need a bit of inspiration to be able to move forward. And you can find us on Google Play, Apple Play, Spotify, and YouTube every Thursday. Catch up soon. Have a great day. Bye.
Like Bilal said, man, we stuck in the matrix. This my advice, don't care if you take it. The dollar back to die, soon to be hyperinflated. This my 2 cents, don't care if you save it. Join be decentralized and you will see. You be lied to the whole time, and it's the irony. Cause they do the exact opposite. You become a slave to the system. Enough your money, all they do is profit. There's no conspiracy theory, you better hear me. Crypto will set you free before the system does. I don't care if you do or you don't, but what I'm saying is the truth to the reason you choke. I've never been a failure, excuse my behavior. Keep talking, haters doing me a favor. They all telling lies, I know what they been telling you. I'm the opposite, like Donald Trump of Australia. It's amazing, here for the